Hi, I'm Saoirse. I'm a multiply disabled autistic AACuser. While I typically try to do somewhat longer presentations, today will be somewhat shorter. We need to talk about the importance of presuming competence, but we also need to discuss the importance of cognitive accessibility while presuming competence. Oftentimes, people seem to feel that these things are at odds, when they are not and should not be treated as such. Presuming competence should never come at the cost of providing access to tools or supports. Growing up, I was fortunate to have a mom who believed in presuming competence, and that made a huge difference for me. But that was far from the case with all the people who would come and go in my life, from schools, to counselors, doctors, SLPs, therapists, and so on. How each new person or professional viewed me meant a new struggle for support, or a fight to get them to presume my competence, and more often than not there was a mix of the two. So let's talk about presuming competence and cognitively accessibility. Presuming competence is not just believing but knowing that, no matter our disability or our support needs, we have our own thoughts, feelings, wants, needs, desires, and we are aware, conscious, full, complete humans with our own thoughts that we can understand, and we can and will learn, grow, and capable to know our own selves, and we have a sense ourselves, even if we can't easily communicate it to you. A lot of people seem to think that presuming competence means not meeting support needs, or not having cognitively accessible materials or other ways for accessing information available, but it doesn't, and they should never be seen as or treated as separate things. Cognitive accessibility and presuming competence looks like teaching us the same things as our peers, letting us learn about gender, sex, relationships, and boundaries. Teaching us all of the uncomfortable stuff, as well as the standard, math and sciences. Making these cognitively accessible means making the information available to us in a variety of materials for us to use and choose from, making sure there is access to information on topics that are plain language. Please make sure that plain language materials you provide are talking to us like you would for our peers. So for example, if you're giving high school students plain language information on campus rules, safety or science stuff, it would be plain language, but should still be talking to them like they are high schoolers. Additionally, providing multiple formats to choose from in addition to plain language and standard text. Provide things like audio options. You can also offer options for video, and offer advanced reading options, while making plain language and audio options available, and letting people choose and switch between them. This is one way to presume competence and make sure you're actually being cognitively accessible. These are just a few examples. A lot of people seem to think that presuming competence means not meeting support needs, or not having cognitively accessible materials or other ways for accessing information available, but it doesn't, and they should never be seen as or treated as separate things. Cognitive accessibility shouldn't come at the expense of presuming competence, means making sure we have access to the same education of our peers, and are not just written off as unteachable, or denied lessons until we can point to the right tree. It also means talking to us about important life stuff like consent, bodily autonomy, and gender in our development. These are not and should not be treated as competing things. And again, access to things shouldn't be based on how well you can communicate and show your learning. This is a lot more complicated and needs more words. But I don't have the brain space to process and make those words into anything that would make sense right now, so I'm going to leave you with that. Presume competence and still give people access to things like plain language and other supports, but don't force them to only have access to those. Presume commence and give people access to tools and supports. These aren't conflicting. And you might not know when someone needs a support or needs more advanced material because you don't live in their head.